This episode discusses the murder of a child by someone who was trusted. There are no graphic descriptions, but the subject matter is deeply distressing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Some stories don't just devastate families, they ripple outward. They change cities. They change the way ordinary places are remembered. They transform everyday routines into something heavier. There are moments that divide time into before and after. And for Melbourne, January 29th, 2009 became one of those moments. The Westgate Bridge is a structure people cross every day without thinking. Morning commuters, parents on school runs, trucks carrying goods into the city. It's ordinary. Until one morning, it wasn't. This is the story of Darcey Iris Freeman, a 4-year-old girl, a first day of school, and a drive that should have ended in a handover between parents. Instead, it ended in national grief. Darcey Iris Freeman was 4 years old. She loved dancing, playing with her brothers, and she loved her trampoline. Family described her as independent, happy, and full of energy, the kind of child that fills rooms with movement. At 4 years old, the world is still built on trust. Adults are safe. Cars mean you're going somewhere fun. Bridges are just big roads in the sky. Darcey didn't know danger. She didn't know betrayal. She did not know that the person responsible for her safety would become the source of her harm. She shouldn't have been in danger. No child should be. Darcey's parents, Arthur Freeman and Peter Freeman, were separated. They shared care of their children. There had been family court proceedings and custody arrangements that had recently been finalised. There was no court order removing the children from their father, and there was no criminal history of violence against them. On paper, it was a shared parenting arrangement like many others. However, evidence later heard in court revealed that Peter had expressed fears to 2 separate medical professionals about Arthur's mental state. Those concerns were not accompanied by specific threats. There was no immediate escalation that triggered emergency intervention. The later coronial findings concluded that no authority could reasonably have predicted what would happen. That conclusion does not remove grief, but it does clarify that this was not a case where obvious warning signs were ignored by institutions. It was a case where something unimaginable occurred. January 29th, 2009, a warm Melbourne morning, Darcey and her siblings had stayed overnight at a beach house in the suburb of Sorrento. It was the end of the school holidays, and Darcey was due to start school. Arthur Freeman was driving the children back to Melbourne for the handover to their mother. The drive from Sorrento towards the city is long enough for children to be able to settle into their seats. There was no evidence of an argument in the car, no chaos reported, no warnings to the children. At some point during the journey, Arthur made a phone call to Peter. When she asked where the children were, he reportedly said, "Say goodbye to your children," and then he ended the call. That sentence would later echo through courtrooms and newsrooms. But at that moment, she didn't know where they were. She didn't know what was about to unfold. As the car approached the Westgate Bridge, traffic moved normally. It was a weekday morning. Commuters were heading into the city. Arthur Freeman pulled into the emergency lane near the highest point of the bridge and he turned on his hazard lights. This was not a collision, not a breakdown, not a loss of control. It was a deliberate stop. Other drivers passed. Some glanced at the stationary car. It looked like any other car who might be experiencing mechanical trouble. No one knew that inside the car sat 3 children, one of whom would not leave the bridge alive. Arthur asked Darcey to climb into the front seat. Her siblings remained in the back. Children obey their parents instinctively. She wouldn't have known why she was being removed, and she wouldn't have felt alarmed at that moment. He got out of the car with her. Drivers later reported seeing a man standing on the bridge holding a small child. Some slowed. Some assumed it was a parent who was comforting an upset child. Others didn't look twice. It's human instinct to assume normality, to believe that what we are seeing fits within ordinary explanations. Until it doesn't. Arthur Freeman threw Darcey from the bridge. The height of the bridge is approximately 60 metres above the Yarra River. There was no opportunity for intervention, no time for negotiation, no warning that could have allowed another driver to stop him. It was a single catastrophic act. He then returned to the car and drove away. In the back seat, Darcey's brother screamed for him to go back. She couldn't swim. He didn't turn around. Multiple witnesses called emergency services. Police, paramedics, and water rescue units responded quickly. Darcey was retrieved from the river and taken to the base of the bridge, where she was then transported to hospital in a critical condition. The bridge was shut down. Traffic halted across Melbourne. Helicopters circled overhead. The news spread quickly. By that afternoon, the city knew. Despite medical intervention, Darcey died later that day. She was 4 years old. Arthur Freeman was arrested later that morning. The trial began in 2011 in the Supreme Court of Victoria. It ran for 19 days. The defence centred heavily on Freeman's mental health. Psychiatric experts gave evidence that he had been suffering from severe depression and mental health decline in the period leading up to the killing. However, the prosecution argued that the act was deliberate and calculated. The jury ultimately rejected a defence of mental impairment and they found Freeman had understood what he was doing, he understood the consequences and intended the outcome. On April 11th, 2011, he was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. The court imposed a minimum non-parole period of 32 years. That means he will not be eligible to apply for parole until 2041. The sentencing judge described the act as one of profound breach of trust and calculated harm. A coronial inquest followed. Its role was not to retry the case. It was to examine whether systems failed, whether intervention could have occurred. The coroner concluded that no professional or authority could reasonably have predicted the act. There was no actionable warning that legally required intervention. That conclusion leaves a discomforting truth. Sometimes Prevention is not possible within the structures that exist. Darcey's siblings survived. They witnessed their father take their sister from the car. They heard what happened. Their identity remains protected and their privacy matters. But their trauma is part of this story because violence like this does not end with one victim. It radiates outward through families, through communities, through memories. The Westgate Bridge is still crossed every day by thousands of vehicles. Parents still glance into their rearview mirrors at children strapped into back seats. But for many in Melbourne, that bridge now carries another meaning. It's no longer just infrastructure. It's associated with a moment of unimaginable betrayal. Places remember. Cities remember. Even when they continue functioning. There is always a risk when telling stories like this that the crime overshadows the child, that the act becomes larger than life. Darcey Iris Freeman was not a headline. She was a 4-year-old girl. She loved to dance. She loved to play. She should have started school that day. She should have grown older. And she should have been safe. This story is not told for shock. It's told to remember her, to centre her, to acknowledge the weight of trust placed in parents and the devastation when that trust is broken. Thank you for listening to Coffee and Crime AU. These stories are told carefully, factually, with the victims first.